Everybody, it's still Rob. Okay, now these next, uh, I don't know how much of these next ones I'm going to cover in one shot. This is so important, and I should never cover all of this for you in 10 minutes, but I'm going to at least tell you the sentence once. And if you didn't hear it and you don't listen, it's not my fault. So first up, remember I've told you long ago many times and repeatedly, you must research your niche correctly, and you must match your niche to your type of booth. So when I did temporary tattoos, I had this painted. It was painted on sheets. I painted my booth onto sheets, and the whole thing was with sticks and ropes and stretchy fabric. Back then, those stretchy awnings were unheard of. Now they're common. And I had this really funky looking thing that, in truth, I didn't need a 10 by 10 space. I just needed a table and 2 or 3 chairs underneath, and people could come in under this funny looking Bedouin tent of mine, and it pumped, and I did very, very well because of matching my booth with my niche. So type of booth is to do with your research. Now, so for example, I'm going to tell you that, and I'm not picking on people for this, the favorite is to buy those 10 by 10 collapsible gazebos, especially even the ones that you just pop it and it's a kind of a pop-up. You push it in the middle of boops, and you've got your gazebo standing. And they are so common and so boring, and so what it does is it makes you invisible. So if you replaced the fabric or put fabric over those of bright colors, and you put your booth, so sorry, I'm mixing some of these up here, but let's just keep it at type of booth for now. You put your booth 1 meter higher. You literally have legs that raise it by a meter. I'm talking a meter is a lot. It's like, well, half of your body height that you've raised your entire booth, and then the whole thing is painted in bright yellow and orange stripes. Of course, again, remember to match. If you're going to do yellow and orange and you're selling clown outfits, you're really going to pump. But if you've got, fancy jewelry, then a bright yellow and orange. But then, a purple and black or a beautiful logo up there in the sky, powerful. So how the size of your booth, the height, the type of walls you use are hugely important. Be different, people, but be different that your booth still looks like a shop, mall, store. People that come into a booth where you've got a standard plastic gazebo and you've got a U-shaped table set up, and you're sitting behind there with your phone in your hand and a smiley face, good for you, and you've got a few raised items on your tables, and that's your market. I can tell you now that you could have sold, I'm going to go with 10 times what you sell if you'd have bothered to not have tables. You still have displays, but just like a mall store. Think about it. Do you go into a mall store to buy, let's go with what you make, handmade soap? Are those soap items on a tabletop somewhere, we're packed in a little rose? No, they're not. They are on shelves. They're in, whatever it is. So switch and think about displaying your booth. Now, I know you're going to come down to me on this. Oh, but Rob, I'm a one person and I only go in my SUV. Well, okay. But then it means you're going to be poor. So if you've only got an SUV, then fine. Get a trailer. Rent one every single time. Buy one and fill it. Fill it with display systems that fold and pack, flat pack, but when you take them out in a trolley that you've got that also flat packs, you pull that whole trolley to your booth, you set up your 20 by 10, because that's the size of your booth point, and you unfold all of things, pop, 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 and you've got shelves that you've just set up that you can reach your hand up and touch the top of, and it's full of stock. I promise you, 10 times your turnover. And of course, if you've got a taller booth and the whole thing is pumping purple and blue bubbles out of the floor, not that, but in other words, be different. Right, size of your booth. I'm not going to tell you that it's the bigger the better by far, by so much more. If you think that if you go from a tabletop to a 10 by 10 with the same amount of stock, you will sell probably 5 times more. If you go from a 10 by 10 to a 10 by 20 and you've gone with proper store style shelving, another 10 times. That literally becomes, is that 100 times your original tabletop? I've got no idea if I'm making up the numbers, but I promise you I proved it. I proved it through my own marketing over the years. Look, when I made hammocks, it was the most obvious of when the amount of stock and the size of my booth made a difference, okay? Because if I had a very, very busy weekend, lovely, that means I made a lot of money, good for me, yay for Rob. But then I got home and the guys in my factory, which were really in my garage, in my backyard, 3 or 4 or 5 guys that worked for me, if they couldn't produce another 100 or so of my product by the next weekend, I was in big trouble. And so, you know, if I was off buying fabric to make hammock chairs on Monday night, Tuesday morning, and that was only getting sewn by Thursday, will it be ready for Saturday? Never. So when I then got to market with little stock, I sold a little. And when I say little, let's say I'd go to market on a Sunday where I always sold 10 hammock chairs. But if I took 30 and I sold 10, fine. Then the next weekend I'll take 100 of them and I won't sell 10, I'll sell 40. I don't understand. Same crowd. I don't understand, by the way. Same volume of feet, etc., etc. There was just more stock, more visible, more variety for them to choose from, and I sold 3 times as much. It's so weird. Right, I've briefly covered layout and display. Incidentally, all of these things I could literally write. I could make you 10 1-hour videos and books on it. I do have a book, by the way. Go and buy it, please, for the $5 or $10 or $50 that I'm selling it for on my book page. I promise you, what you can learn and apply in there, you will recoup your money back in seconds. Okay, so now layout and display, I have covered it. Raise your booth, change your walls, change how you do your layouts, avoid tables if possible. Don't give them up completely. I know that a lot of you watching this are going to be fans of a checkout table thing. Now, that is something that absolutely horrifies me, that I had to have a box table thing, column that I'd bring with, that sure had my checkout things in a packet, and I could say, oh, thank you, and give them the glad hand, clappy, clappy, kissy, kissy, here's your packet, ma'am, thank you. Did I really need this checkout booth? I don't think so. But what happens is people, traders, you and I, vendors, see other vendors doing it and think, ooh, oh, that's clever, I'll do that. No, it's not clever. But if it's working for you, please don't stop the video because you think I'm an idiot. It is my thoughts. I believe it's a waste of space. If you love it and you've got the space to use up, I'm happy for you. Okay, so display, back to repeating, store size, and then 10 by 10 or 20 by 10 is by far the best. In fact, 20 by 20, if you can fit all of that into a truck and take it. Never forget the guy I first learned this from. I saw him always on the markets on the beaches, and we were very often a street display, and all of us had been set up for hours, and he'd wait until it was busy, meaning already 10 or 11 o'clock. We'd been there since 7 in the morning, and he'd pitch up at 10 o'clock and he'd have 3 people, and they would he'd have this huge Sprinter truck, the biggest kind, and he'd pull out these folding, I don't even know what you want to call them, but it was a big, huge folding display thing, and they were on wheels, and he'd pull it out and he'd open it. It'd open like a book, and he'd open 4 of them and put them all back to back, so the 4 of them would make a square display thing higher than they could reach, and it would be full of stock already. Literally, they'd clip, and in 20 seconds they were ready. 2 of the guys would be selling. Anyway, that setup, I got no idea, a pile of those. They'd squat on a huge amount of acreage, and they'd do so much more than all of us, because it was big, it was tall, it was professional, and it just was funky. The whole design, brilliant. Okay, branding and banners. What am I on? 10 minutes. I'm going to cover this really quick. In fact, I'm going to cover both of these very quickly. Sorry to say that if you want to hear branding and banners, hang around and set up and break down. So branding and banners is big because your brand is important. But by the way, your brand is important online. Google will remember you if you called Wacky Woo Woo Wah Woms. But if you call yourself Blue Jade Jewelry, Google's going to think, but are you branding? No. So branding works on the markets too, but to be very honest, I think it's more a visual thing. So in other words, if you've got a logo that's really funky and cool and people can see it from the parking lot, and remember, if you've listened to me and you've raised your booth by a meter, they can see your booth above everybody else's. They will make sure that they walk to find that huge purple balloon looking thing with that massive branding, I've got no idea, logo on top. I remember, again, this was where I first learned it, the guy doing printed t-shirts, but they didn't call them that back then because long before print on demand. This guy had a t-shirt made that was 2 meters wide and 4 meters high, and he put the whole thing up like a flag way above everybody's head. You could see it from the next suburb, town maybe. But I tell you what, that t-shirt flapping up there, that huge massive t-shirt flapping up there, I mean, it was like a flagpole. You had to run cables to hold it up all over the place, and it was amazing. People loved it. They spoke about it. They bought his t-shirts. It worked. Okay. Do banners by all means. Show your prices, please. And all sorts of things. But again, make sure that it doesn't interrupt with make any banners you do, make sure it's a benefit to helping, that it says bargain bin stuff here. It says custom orders here. It says puppies here, labradoodle stuff here, whatever it is. Make it, your banners, make it work from a bit like in a supermarket. You get your shopping aisles, you just look up and realize, baking, I'm on my way. Do it like that. Right, lastly, at 12 minutes, my bad, set up and break down. I have been preparing a setup and breakdown video course for about 1.5 years now. I'm not joking. I'm joking, but it's sad that I'm so what is the word, ADHD, ditzy, but it's okay. But I found all of these things on YouTube that it shows all of these booth things that fold and fold flat, and they all go flat pack into a system that goes into the back of your van or into your trailer that you pull out first, and you literally load all of those flat pack things onto a trolley thing. You pull it to your booth, you lock your car first, and you pull it to your booth, and in 15 minutes you've got all of your walls set up and strong, set up that they're linking to each other with bolts and whatever, so that if the wind blows, all of your other traders are going to come and hide in your booth because you're standing there through a hurricane. Setup and breakdown is massive. The more organized you can get, and the more it can be streamlined to pack and go, and pack and you're ready. It is perfect. And if you keep an eye on me, I can be doing more of that. If you think it's important that you learn this, then maybe email me and say, Rob, make that course that you've been promising for so long. And I will. Okay, let's get on to the last video of this. Thank you. Cheers.